What is up, guys? I am GT Sali, and let's talk about The Last of Us 2 and the fact that it may have been scrapped. So after reading this article, this, and this, it seems like they're not working on The Last of Us 2 after all. But wait, there's so much evidence that they are. How could this be? Well, let's review. In 2014, a year after the release of The Last of Us, Druckmann said that the possibility of a sequel was, quote, about 50-50, and the team needed to find a story, quote, really worth telling and that's not repeating itself. Later that year, community strategist Arne Meyer, who is in charge of things like promotional screenshots or trailers or social media or even going to events like E3, said that not considering a sequel will, quote, be a disservice to the studio and the fans. Then, of course, there was the slip-up by Nolan North, who did the voice for David in The Last of Us and does the voice for Nathan Drake, the main character in the Naughty Dog Uncharted series.
Do you have any more projects with Naughty Dog, or is this the last one
For now, last one. I know they're doing Last of Us 2. But
Not too long afterward, he had this to say.
But I said it just from a fan's point of view. You'd figure they would. And if they don't, I apologize, but that would, you know, I don't know.
Druckmann later responded to these comments, stating that a small team at Naughty Dog had explored ideas and begun building prototypes relating to a sequel, but they were interrupted when the team shifted development to Uncharted 4.
I mean, I've said this before, so this is not news, but you know, we have brainstormed sequel ideas for The Last of Us, and we've brainstormed ideas for new games, but all that is put on ice right now while we work on Uncharted 4.
There was also a series of hints dropped in the epilogue in Uncharted 4. There was the Last of Us American Daughters poster in Casey's mirror, and I can't believe I forgot to mention this, but there's a Savage Starlight poster hanging just to the right of the American Daughters poster. Now, if you remember in The Last of Us, Joel will collect these comics and give them to Ellie, but the comics in the first game were called Savage Starlight. In this poster, it says Savage Starlight 2, which is definitely a hint. Then, of course, there was the leaked Game Informer article detailing characters and settings of the story. And one more thing I forgot to mention in the last video is Michael Nolan. Now, who is Michael Nolan? He was the lead character artist at Naughty Dog, and in his LinkedIn account, he mentions working on The Last of Us, Uncharted 4, and, you guessed it, The Last of Us 2. And he left Naughty Dog way back in 2014, so this was 2 years, almost 3 years ago now. It's a long time that this game has been in development. He later deleted this from his profile, but screenshots. Now, there was a slip-up from another Naughty Dog employee, this time during a Twitch live stream by Naughty Dog for the Uncharted Nathan Drake collection. I'll just let you watch it.
By the way, all the facial animation in the Uncharted series was led up by Eric here, and all the facial animation in the Uncharted games and the first The Last of Us. Did I say the first of Last of Us? The first The Last of Us. The Last of Us. The first Last of Us. The Last of Us was also keyframe animation.
You can see Eric smile after he messes up like, you're in trouble. So with all this evidence, how is it now that articles are saying The Last of Us 2 is not in development anymore? Well, here's what they're saying. Naughty Dog is currently busy with Uncharted 4, hence it has almost stopped taking any interest in the sequel. Druckmann stated that the team would start working on The Last of Us 2 only after they've completed the single-player DLC project. So if you've been following Uncharted 4, you may know already that they're going to release a single-player DLC for Uncharted 4, kind of the same way they released Left Behind a year after The Last of Us came out. And there's also the multiplayer roadmap that they'll be working on over the next year. So even though Uncharted 4 has already been released, they're still hard at work with the single-player DLC and all the multiplayer DLC that they're continuously working on over the next year, providing new maps, new characters, game modes, all that. So the director stated that once the team has enough resources, it would resurrect the available prototypes and see how to develop the game from there. Druckmann accepted that production has not moved an inch in the past few years. He stated that the first game took them almost 3.5 years for developing, so fans should remain a bit patient and expect The Last of Us 2 to come at least in an equal amount of time. Ashley Johnson, the voice actress of Ellie, recently expressed her excitement at reprising her role in the upcoming sequel. According to sources, she would be glad to be a part of The Last of Us 2 if it ever comes to the development stage. So that's another reason we believe The Last of Us 2 is not in production, because Neil has already stated that if Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson are not able to come back to reprise their roles as Joel and Ellie, then he would write a new story with new characters for the sequel, because to him, Troy and Ashley are Joel and Ellie. So since Ashley Johnson still hasn't done any voice work for The Last of Us 2, and she's just sitting around waiting to hear from Naughty Dog, then clearly it's not in production. Then there's always the possibility that Naughty Dog noticed how much stuff was getting leaked and how many rumors there were, and they were just like, this GT Sali guy, he's on to us. So they needed to slow down the rumors. So they had Neil Druckmann, who made most of these statements, just come out and say like, hey, listen, we're not working on The Last of Us 2. We're still busy with Uncharted 4, so relax. When we get done with Uncharted 4, then maybe we could brainstorm some ideas for The Last of Us 2. When in actuality, they're way past brainstorming, and they just told the voice actors to say they know nothing anytime they're asked about The Last of Us 2, which is exactly what they've done. So, I don't know for sure which one it is. It's kind of 50-50. I feel like it could be either way. They could be lying and really working on The Last of Us 2, or they could be delaying the game until they finish work on Uncharted 4. It's entirely possible, considering Neil Druckmann is the creative director for both games, and if he's directing the DLC for Uncharted 4, which we also know for a fact that he is doing, then he can't be simultaneously directing The Last of Us 2. So what do you think? Are they working on The Last of Us 2 and just trying to do a better job of keeping it a secret? Or are they really scrapping the entire project until they finish with Uncharted 4? Let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching. And if you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe button to get all the latest news on The Last of Us 2. And if you'd like to follow me on social media, I'm on Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram, all under the same name, GT Sali. And if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the like button, and also share this video with anybody you know who likes The Last of Us. And until next time, I have been GT Sali.